This discovery was made by a team of researchers in Italy. They claim their radar scans prove that there's a vast hidden complex below the pyramids.
Inside a quiet conference room in Pescara, Italy, 4 scholars stepped onto the stage.
We're looking at the possibility of huge megastructures being uncovered beneath the second pyramid.
No flashing lights, no grand announcement. But within minutes, the scientific world would shake. They didn't reveal an artifact. They revealed proof of a colossal structure, buried nearly 700 meters beneath the Pyramid of Khafre, a structure that by every historical standard should not exist. The team Filippo Biondi, Armando May, Corrado Malanga, and Nicola Ciacchio used advanced synthetic aperture radar, a ground-penetrating technology capable of scanning hundreds of meters below the surface. What they found defied 2 centuries of archaeological assumptions: 8 massive shafts, each over 11 meters wide, plunging 648 meters deep, and 2 enormous rectangular chambers symmetrically hidden at the core of the bedrock. For over 200 years, researchers believed the pyramid had been fully explored. But the data tells a different story, that the greatest part of Khafre may still be buried.
If accurate, it changes the face of history as we know it.
The quiet of the room deepened as Dr. Filippo Biondi stepped forward, the man behind the scans that had turned a myth into measurable data. His field wasn't archaeology. It was radar and remote sensing, the kind used to map fault lines and distant asteroids. And this time, it had been aimed not at the sky, but beneath the limestone bedrock of Giza.
The alleged discovery of huge caverns, or sort of massive pillars beneath the famous big pyramids.
The system they used was synthetic aperture radar SAR, but enhanced far beyond standard ground-penetrating methods. By fusing natural microseismic vibrations with controlled artificial oscillations, the team amplified the returning signals, pushing the radar far deeper than conventional GPR had ever gone. Layer by layer, the Earth began to speak back. Every reflected wave was captured from hundreds of angles and merged into a single, high-resolution 3D reconstruction. When the processed images emerged, the bedrock was no longer solid. Hollow corridors, vertical shafts, and low-density zones formed a geometric pattern too deliberate to be natural. To prove the method, the team turned first to Khufu's pyramid, the most documented structure in Giza. The radar matched a 97% of its known internal layout. With only a 3% margin of error, it was a quiet but decisive test. If the system was that precise with what was known, then the anomalies beneath Khafre could not simply be dismissed as noise. Their findings were compiled into a technical report and 3D seismic maps, now circulating across academic networks before formal peer review. Within hours, the scans had set off waves of debate. Some urged caution, others wonder. The possibility that the finished map of Giza was never truly finished was unsettling and electrifying. For over 2 centuries, the Khafre pyramid has stood as a monument defined by what can be seen above the sand. But if these scans are right, its greatest secrets lie far below, in chambers untouched by time, in a structure no tool of the Bronze Age should have been able to carve. And if this technology has only now made the invisible visible, how much of the past still waits, just beyond the reach of everything we thought we knew?
What they discover is, if you want, spiral hallways. I don't know how many of them, but that could lead maybe to an hypothesis, a thesis that maybe we have there an ancient technology.
As the first layer of data unfolded, lines, shafts, and voids emerged inside the stone mass of Khafre like the blueprint of something time had carefully buried. Within the pyramid, there was not just the familiar funerary layout recorded in textbooks, but 5 hollow tiers stacked in vertical sequence, each bound to the next through corridors mapped with almost surgical precision. The geometry rotated around a single invisible axis, as if the entire structure had been poured around a hidden spine. In the 3D reconstruction, Khafre was no longer a tomb. It resembled a mechanism sealed in stone. Below the limestone base, the radar peeled back another veil. 8 colossal spiral shafts encircled the central axis, each more than 11 meters wide and plunging nearly 700 meters into the earth. Along their cylindrical walls, coiled patterns spiraled downward in perfect symmetry, evoking a slow and deliberate rhythm. The surrounding material reflected signals of extraordinary density, engineered to bear weight and time. The mathematical precision of the eightfold layout turned the pyramid's foundation into something more than architecture. It was a structure suspended on its own invisible spine. Deeper still. Two vast rectangular halls appeared silent, geometrically exact, lying roughly 700 meters below the surface. Each chamber stretched over 80 meters wide and 75 meters high, joined by a single, straight tunnel, the corners aligned with uncanny accuracy, deviating less than a fraction of a degree, suggesting not chance, but intent. Inside, the signals returned steady and hollow, untouched by water or collapse. At a depth where modern excavation falters, the twin halls endured like two lungs of stone, holding their silence. And then came the final layer. Beneath those massive halls, a subterranean network extended east to west, descending another 600 meters. The radar outlines formed the shape of a buried city intersecting corridors, arterial passageways, and countless peripheral rooms. At its core, all signals converged on a single, concentrated point of reflection, a nucleus, a locus that some now call the gate of the underworld, not because its nature is known, but precisely because it is not. Beneath the sands of Giza, beneath the stone that civilization thought it had mapped, Khafre reveals itself in descending sequence: a core, spiral shafts, twin halls, and an underground city. A geometry too deliberate to be dismissed as an accident. If such architecture exists, whose design does it follow? What force required this precision? And perhaps most haunting of all, was it meant to be found, or merely endured, waiting for the question to be asked? After revealing the model of the underground city and the so-called gate of the underworld, the research team wasn't finished. Armando May stepped forward with something that shifted the atmosphere in the room away from stones and measurements into a space where archaeology brushes against old prophecy. He reached back to 1932 to one of the trance readings of Edgar Cayce, a man known as the Sleeping Prophet. Among his thousands of predictions, one stood out beneath the Sphinx. Cayce described a hidden hall of records, a vault that preserved the knowledge of a lost civilization, Atlantis. He spoke of 32 stone tablets of advanced astronomical and technological understanding, buried under the sands until humanity was ready to find them. For decades, it sounded like a myth, but the radar scans shown that night painted a different picture: a network of chambers, intersecting tunnels, and an energy center, all perfectly aligned with the axis stretching from the Khafre pyramid to the Sphinx. The match was so precise that the room seemed to tighten around it. If this was a coincidence, it was a breathtaking one. If not, then what lay beneath Giza wasn't just an archaeological site, but a buried memory. May led the audience further, weaving ancient stories with science, roughly 12,800 years ago. Earth went through the Younger Dryas, an abrupt climatic shift marked by catastrophic floods and upheavals. Cayce had said that survivors from Atlantis carried their knowledge across oceans to places like Egypt, Central America, and the Andes. The radar data suggested something physical beneath the legend: 8 vertical shafts, resonant chambers buried deep underground, and patterns that matched old descriptions of energy systems said to draw power from both Earth and the stars. When the team projected a 3D model comparing the Giza tunnels with ancient diagrams of Atlantis, the similarities were unsettling: concentric designs, mirrored axes, precise geometry. May didn't make any grand declaration. He let the silence do its work. If Cayce had been right, then what they'd found wasn't just an old structure, it could be the last surviving piece of something far older than Egypt itself. Cayce had spoken of a moment when 4 planets would align in the age of Aquarius, and when that happened, the gate would open. Astronomers now expect that alignment in 2025. The silence that followed wasn't disbelief. It was the kind of silence that comes when people realize the ground beneath them might not be what they thought it was. The presentation then lifted its gaze from the ground to the sky. Corrado Malanga projected a satellite image of the Giza Plateau, then overlaid it with Orion's belt. It was impossible to ignore the 3 pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure aligned almost perfectly with the stars, Al-Nitak, Al-Nilam, and Mintaka, just as they appeared over Egypt around 10,500 BCE. Even the slight angular offset was identical to the constellation's tilt at that time. In Egyptian myth, Orion represents Osiris, god of rebirth. The Sphinx is tied to Isis or Sekhmet, guardian of the threshold between worlds. Together, they form a celestial gate, a reflection of the heavens etched into the earth. The old saying fits almost too well as above, so below. Malanga showed how energy lines traced from the three pyramids converged on a single point tanked 2 kilometers underground, the same point revealed in the earlier radar scan. The margin of error was so tiny it seemed to defy the idea of chance. Their theory wasn't that the ancient Egyptians invented this alignment, but that they inherited it. That the pyramids weren't just tombs, but part of a larger system, something designed to resonate with the stars themselves. Across the Nile Valley, temple after temple is positioned with an exactness that still surprises modern engineers. None of it seems random. When seen as a whole, Giza isn't just a cluster of monuments, it's a carefully laid out map of the heavens, with each stone block playing a part in something bigger, from the Valley Temple to the Sphinx, stretching down to the Red Pyramid at Dashur. The structures mirror Orion and Leo. On the spring equinox, the rising sun aligns perfectly along the Sphinx Khafre Osiris axis, triggering a striking reflection of light. The team believes this might not have been just ceremonial. It could have been part of a system designed to collect or amplify energy underground. No one could say for sure what it all meant. But with every layer peeled back, the idea that these were merely royal tombs seemed to dissolve. If Giza really mirrors the stars, if beneath it lies a structure older than history, then who were its builders? Survivors of a lost civilization, a culture erased by flood and time, or something we have no words for yet. No answers came, just a stillness that felt almost ancient, as if the desert itself was listening. And somewhere beneath the sand, a door might still be waiting. The press conference shifted gear once again. After hours of archaeological revelation and star mapping speculation, the spotlight turned to something even more audacious. Corrado Malanga and Filippo Biondi stepped forward not to speak of gods or myths, but of physics. Their proposal, the pyramids of Giza, were never meant to be silent tombs. They were machines. Corrado began with the materials themselves. Every block of the Giza pyramids is made of limestone, granite, and quartz, 3 minerals with remarkable electrical properties. Granite, in particular, is rich in quartz, which produces a piezoelectric effect when compressed or vibrated. It generates an electrical charge, seen not as a monument, but as a vast resonant system. The Great Pyramid could act like a natural generator, drawing power from the Earth's own movements, its underground waters, its seismic murmurs. Biondi picked up the thread. He pointed to the geometric language embedded in the structure. The ratio between the Great Pyramid's height and its base perimeter is astonishingly close to 2p, the Khafre Pyramid. Meanwhile, encodes the golden ratio 1:1.618. These numbers, he argued, weren't ornamental, they were functional. A pyramid, in its purest mathematical form, is uniquely suited to channel energy upward along its vertical axis, concentrating whatever force stirs beneath the ground toward its apex. Radar readings revealed something else. Beneath the Khafre Pyramid flows a network of underground water channels, constantly pulsing with pressure shifts from seismic and atmospheric activity. As the water moves through granite laced with quartz, it generates weak but steady electrical currents. The 8 vertical shafts identified earlier may have acted like resonant pipes, amplifying the vibration and transmitting energy upward through the internal chambers. Corrado laid out the sequence like an elegant equation water: sound, quartz, resonance, electricity. When the energy reached the peak once capped, long ago, with a layer of pure gold, the apex may have emitted a focused electromagnetic field into the ionosphere. It was a process strangely reminiscent of Nikola Tesla's wireless energy transmission, but built thousands of years earlier, without a single wire. The team showed a 3D simulation of the energy field surrounding the pyramid, swirling electromagnetic vortices rising from the summit, colliding with waves emanating from the subterranean shafts. The interference pattern formed a stable resonant field, a kind of pulse capable of amplifying natural frequencies. In Corrado's words, they were looking at a cosmic tuning fork, calibrated to Earth itself. Some independent researchers had gone even further, pointing out that the triangular arrangement of the 3 main Giza pyramids could form a resonant circuit, not unlike a 3-phase electrical system in modern engineering. Working together, the structures might once have generated and stabilized a large-scale energy field, one that spanned the plateau. perhaps more. The theory remains controversial, yet modern measurements detect a faint electromagnetic hum at around 8 Hz radiating from the Khufu Pyramid, eerily close to the Earth's Schumann resonance. The structure is not dead stone. It breathes faintly with the planet. When Corrado reached the end of his presentation, the room seemed to inhale and hold its breath. The idea was too enormous to either dismiss or fully accept. The pyramids, long treated as silent monuments to the dead, were being reimagined as resonant engines machines built not to memorialize a past, but to interact with the living heartbeat of the Earth. After explaining their pyramid energy theory, Filippo Biondi shifted focus to Nikola Tesla, the early 20th century inventor who dreamed of wireless free energy. He highlighted Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. Built in 1905, a 57-meter metal structure topped with a conductive sphere designed to harness the Earth's natural resonance to transmit electricity without wires, though the project failed due to funding. Tesla's notes reveal his discovery of a resonance between Earth and the ionosphere that could send energy through the air with minimal loss. The team saw striking parallels between Tesla's tower and the pyramid's energy model. Both rely on standing wave resonance between ground and sky, upward-pointing emitters, and Earth's magnetic field as a power source. Filippo argued Tesla wasn't inventing something new, but rediscovering ancient knowledge. Corrado Malanga added that legends of Atlantis describe energy towers powered by crystals and planetary fields, distributing energy through resonant networks, an ancient echo of Tesla's vision of limitless, clean energy flowing invisibly beneath our feet. Images showed the Wardenclyffe Tower's tip alongside the Great Pyramid's original gold apex, which could have served as a giant antenna, transmitting energy skyward through the pyramid's resonant system. Electromagnetic simulations revealed spiraling vortex energy flows matching Tesla's own drawings, potentially linking pyramids worldwide into a forgotten global energy grid. Remarkably, pyramids from Egypt to the Maya share a critical 51° 51 angle, optimal for resonance with Earth's magnetic axis. Whether by ancient wisdom or coincidence, the alignment is undeniable. In dimmed light, Armando May reflected that Tesla may have tried to revive a lost energy form, clean, endless, and untethered. Yet humanity, blinded by power and profit, let this chance slip away. He closed with a haunting thought: if Atlantis existed, pyramids were not just temples, but bridges between earth and sky, and Tesla might have been the last to truly grasp their meaning. When the presentation ended, the questions came fast. Reporters from across the world wanted to know whether the discoveries could be verified on the ground. Could they drill beneath the Sphinx? Could they walk the tunnels themselves? Armando May simply shook his head. Every request to conduct ground surveys or drilling at Giza had been rejected by the Egyptian authorities, officially in the name of cultural heritage preservation, but in the silence that followed. The refusal hung in the air like something heavier. For many in the room, it felt less like protection and more like a wall. This, May reminded them, wasn't new. In 1993, the German engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink had sent a small robot, Upuaut-2, into one of the air shafts of the Great Pyramid. The footage showed something no one had seen before: a tiny limestone door with copper handles. Within days of the announcement, the project was shut down, the shaft sealed, and the site declared off-limits. The order came from Zahi Hawass, Egypt's then Minister of Antiquities, citing national security. The pattern stretched back further. In 1991, Boston University geologist Robert Schoch presented evidence that the Sphinx bore clear marks of water erosion, meaning it was at least 9,000 years old, far older than mainstream Egyptology allowed. His findings were swiftly dismissed. Independent surveys were blocked. Geological data was quietly removed from official archives. Every time someone stepped too far beyond the accepted timeline, May said, the same invisible hand seemed to push them back. Corrado Malanga added that after their own press conference went public, the project's website had been hacked. Radar data files were deleted or replaced. Several team members received anonymous emails warning them to stop spreading destabilizing information. No one could say who was behind it, but the timing was enough to make even skeptics uneasy. During the Q&A, one journalist asked the question that seemed to hover over everything: if what you found is true, why would anyone want to keep it hidden? May answered carefully. If the pyramids were truly ancient energy machines, the implications would be seismic. It would rewrite the story of civilization. challenge religious narratives, and shake the foundations of how power scientific, economic, and political is structured. Knowledge like that doesn't just change textbooks, it shifts entire worlds. He reminded the room that independent researchers had been running into walls for a century. Graham Hancock, John Anthony West, René Schwaller de Lubitsch. Brilliant minds, all of them branded fringe, denied excavation permits, or quietly erased from academic circles. It wasn't always about proving them wrong. Sometimes, it was simply about making sure their questions never got too loud. Science, May said, is not supposed to be about belief. It's about asking. And it is precisely the act of asking that some would rather silence. As he closed his statement, his voice lowered. Not in anger, but with the weight of something much older than any of them. If humanity is so afraid of the truth that it buries it beneath desert sands, then the winds will someday uncover it anyway. The room went still. For a moment, it felt as if everyone could hear the desert outside the wind moving over the stones, patient and unbothered, as it has been for thousands of years. Who we are, where we come from, and where we are going. Perhaps the answer was never on the surface. No one spoke. It wasn't a silence of confusion, but of something more delicate, the quiet wait that comes when a door seems to have opened, even if only a crack. Perhaps the great mysteries of the world were never lost. Perhaps they've always been buried just beneath our feet, waiting not for discovery, but for remembrance. What if the myths we've dismissed as legends are fragments of memory echoes from a time when humanity still knew how to listen? The researchers stepped down from the stage, but their words hung in the room like fine dust suspended in still air. And then, almost like a thought surfacing uninvited, if this was only one hall of records, how many more still sleep in the dark? The screen went black. Only the sound of the wind outside seemed to move quiet. Patient, as if it had been waiting far longer than anyone in that room.